I'm John Buchanan. Now in this week's video, what we're going to do is to ask a really important question. One of the most important questions, in fact, which is what is the relationship between compression and limiting? And at what point does one become the other? Important questions, I think you'll agree. Let's have a listen to the track we're going to be working on. Okay, there's our backing track made up of some drums and some bass and some synths. Okay, so this question about compression and limiting, why is it so important? Well, partly it's important because compression is just a studio staple effect, which, to be honest, at the mix stage, we might end up using on every single track of the mix. Those large format console desks that we kind of fell in love with when we first started learning about music technology often have a dynamic stage built into every single channel. The idea that we can control dynamic range on every single sound and every group of sounds feels like a potentially important thing to be able to do. And so compression is a subject that we've come to many times on this channel, and we're going back there again today, but with one specific focus, which is at what point does compression become limiting? Now, to understand what that question even means, you're going to be impressed by this, I think. Okay, so what are we actually looking at here? So what we've got is a compression graph. We've got volume on the left-hand side, and we've got time along the bottom. In other words, we've got a red line that is showing a sound that is getting progressively louder from silence, and then as time goes by, this unspecified period of time, the sound grows in volume, and it just keeps getting progressively louder. Now, what happens with compression is that we first of all have an opportunity to set what's referred to as a threshold point. And what that does is it controls the volume of sounds that exceed that volume threshold. In other words, as the sound gets louder, it is allowed to just carry on getting louder until it reaches the threshold point. And above that point, we engage what's referred to as the ratio control. Now, the ratio effectively controls how much louder the sound is allowed to get. So with a ratio of 1:1, the sound just continues to get as loud as it did before. The compressor is engaged on the sound, but it's not actually doing anything. It's ready to, it has a threshold point, but the ratio we've selected effectively means that it's just going to continue to, in a linear way, get louder. But the moment we start to increase the ratio, let's say we take it to 2:1, what happens is this, which is that the signal is only able to get half as loud as it could before. So with a ratio of 2:1, the volume can only reach 50% of its original volume, which means that we lose this bit of dynamic range. Effectively, this portion of the volume can no longer happen. The sound simply cannot get any louder than half as loud as it could before. And as we increase the ratio, that becomes more and more true. So with a ratio of 4:1, we again effectively halve again how much louder it can get. And every time we increase the ratio, the volume comes down again. Now, by the time we get to a ratio of 8:1, the sound is really, and of course these aren't strict, I'm proud as I am of my diagram, these aren't obviously strict ratios in terms of the way that this looks, but at the same time, you can begin to see that relative to the original volume, we are now massively squeezing the amount of additional volume that we can get. In other words, we're approaching what we might refer to as limiting. The sound is almost limited in terms of how much louder it can get. And by the time we get to a ratio of 16:1, which we would be about here, that's even more true. And that would be 32:1. And I can't do that because Keynote won't let me. It's not ready for the ultimate in compression ratio drawing. But it makes the point for me because effectively by the time we get there, we have limited the signal. And what that term means is the sound simply cannot get any louder. So what we're learning from this diagram is that by the time we get to a ratio of about 16:1, 25:1, 32:1, certainly 40:1, we are in effect limiting the sound. And that's where the relationship between threshold, ratio, compression, and limiting all start to make sense. And of course, what happens in a limiter is that we have a more pared down collection of controls. I had to work so hard not to say the word limited there, because that would have been confusing. But we have fewer controls because we don't need some of this stuff. Particularly, we don't need ratio. Let me show you what I mean. Let's come back to Logic for a second. What I'm going to do is to come to my drums, and I'm going to put a compressor over this signal. So of course this is going to be dynamics and it's going to be compressor. And I'm going to solo this for a second. And what we're going to do is to put a loop around this area. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off automatic gain increase. That basically means that Logic isn't going to add any volume to this signal for me. And what I'm going to do is to set a threshold well into what I think is going to be the dynamic range of the sound. In other words, the volume is going to effortlessly exceed minus 25 dB. This drum part is louder than that. What I'm also going to do is to set a ratio of 1:1, which is, as we have discussed and already looked at, effectively meaning that as the volume exceeds the threshold point, nothing is going to happen to it. And I'm also going to turn off automatic release. Now, what we should hear as I switch this compressor in is that not a whole lot changes, because we aren't actually doing any compression as a result of this ratio amount. What we'll do is just press play, and hopefully we'll hear as we punch this in that nothing much is going to change. Here's the original. Sure enough, and we can hear that there's no difference, but we can also see that in this meter area here, we're not losing any volume. Remember, as we increase the ratio, we lose the loudest sections. That line got quieter effectively as we drop down through the different ratio settings. And we should hear that as we begin to increase ratio on playback. So I'm going to do that now. So we're hearing those drums kind of get quieter and quieter. Now, interestingly, of course, that's not just like me dropping the volume fader, because this is dynamic processing. In other words, the attack time and the release time are crucial in letting through a bit of the sound before it's then compressed. So we're still kind of getting the impact of those drums before the kind of gaps between them are attenuated in terms of their volume. They kind of lose volume in the gaps between those transients. And that's because this is dynamic processing, not just regular volume. Okay, by the time we get to a ratio of 20:1, 30:1, then of course we are then looking at limiting. And exactly the point at which compression becomes limiting, well, there is no fixed amount. This is, in effect, at what point do you stop hearing the fact that dynamics are being attenuated any more than they were before? Well, I would certainly say by the time we're getting around 15, 20:1, we are effectively just limiting this signal. Okay, so we know about compression. So I'm going to leave the compressor here, and what I'm going to do is just set a ratio of about 5:1, and I'm just going to leave it there for a moment. And then what I'm going to do is to bypass that effect, and I'm going to add underneath Logic's limiter. Now, there are a couple of these actually within Logic, and we're going to look at just the regular limiter to start with, which looks like this. Now, interestingly, if you come into the help area and look at Logic's effects, you will find that the way that these effects are written up is to encourage you to think about limiters as only being useful kind of at the output stage. A useful way of being able to control overall output level to ensure that your signals simply cannot exceed 0 dB. A little catch-all, let's make sure that we've got level under control at the output stage so that we don't have a distorted mix. Well, I think limiting is a much more interesting effect than that, and definitely an effect that I would use at the mix stage on certain groups of sounds, and certainly not one that we want to be overlooking. But you'll notice straight away the moment I turn on the limiter that we no longer have a threshold control, and we no longer have ratio controls either. Effectively, what we've got here is an amazingly pared back collection of dynamics controls. So what have I got? Well, I've got a gain control. What this allows me to do is to turn up the volume of the source signal, effectively feeding more level into the limiter. What I've then got is a release control. Well, we've just seen this within the compressor. This effectively is going to control how long the signal is held before the release time controls a return to unprocessed volume. So let me say that again. What that effectively means is, in a regular compressor, as the signal came through the threshold point and was processed, as it then got quieter again, it would drop back through the threshold point, and the release time would control how long it takes to get back to an unprocessed signal. Well, here I don't have a threshold and I don't have a ratio, but I do have a release time. And that's because effectively the threshold and the ratio are being controlled internally. So the release is still going to be important in terms of what happens as the signal recovers and gets quieter. Then we've got an overall output level control. This is the bit the logic manual is referring to when it says this is my opportunity to get output level under control. And then what I've got is a look ahead control. Now, effectively what that means is that the limiter, because it's software, allows me to say, okay, in order to make a slightly smoother effect, I would like you, logic, to look ahead. In other words, to see what's coming down the line from a dynamics perspective and to be ready to respond. In other words, as I turn up the look ahead amount, the effect should be smoother. Whereas if I turn it down towards 0, the limiter is going to behave much more like a hardware unit would. It doesn't have time to discover what it's going to happen next in the audio signal before it actually happens. So let's just have a listen to what the effect is of the limiter on the drums as we begin to change some of these settings. I'm going to keep everything as it is right now. We're going to find that things will glitch out a little bit as I switch in and out the look ahead dial. We'll come to that in a moment. But all I really want to do is to see whether or not the limiter can provide more presence in the drums as I start to increase gain. Okay, so we're looking at some really important parameters here. I managed to push gain up by 5-6 dB before we even began to see any reduction. But the moment I push it really hard, and I really am pushing it very hard now, effectively what that's doing is it's massively increasing the amount of gain. And we can hear that the drums become unbelievably loud, but yet they don't exceed 0 dB. And that's because the limiter is effectively controlling the output stage for us. It's got an automatic gain compensation that's making sure that effectively we're pushing volume as hard as we can in all of those gaps. Now remember, I talked about that a moment ago. The idea that dynamic range can play out in a couple of different ways depending on the type of material we're working on. Well, we're dealing with drums here with lots of really loud transients and then a rapid decrease in volume as each transient fades effectively almost to silence. Again, just think about one drum at a time for a moment. Obviously, we've got a kick and a snare and hats playing out in this rhythm, but at the same time, each individual moment plays and then it fades, and then it plays and then it fades. So we can add lots of gain to all of the gaps between those transients, and that's what we're hearing. So effectively, what I can do is to massively boost gain, and then I can get output level under control by dropping that volume. That means more process signal, which is then being regulated in terms of its volume, just like we can within a compressor. So you can hear how much quieter the signal is, obviously, when we drop the limiter out. But the interesting thing effectively becomes, well, how does this differ from us going after limiting type settings within the compressor? What I'm going to do is to leave the limiter bypass for a second, and then what we're going to do is to re-engage the compressor. Okay, so we already know that in order for me to get to limiter type settings, I need a ratio which is high. So let's assume for a moment that the limiter has a ratio of infinity to 1. In other words, it simply won't let anything get louder. Well, the closest I can get to that is 30 to 1 within my compressor. That's still pretty hard, as we've already established. So what happens if I drop the threshold? So we're compressing loads of the signal. I set a release time of around 250 again. So in other words, matching the sort of behavior, if you like, of the way that the limiter is working. And we'll set a relatively quick attack time. And then what we'll do is to use automatic gain, or at least my gain dial here, to make sure that I'm pushing volume to a point where we're getting similar kinds of levels to those that we were getting out of the limiter. Well, what does that sound like? Now remember, because the limiter is looking after output level for me and the compressor isn't, I'm having to manually adjust gain to make sure that I don't exceed 0. I've just missed it. We're over by 0.2 dB. But the sound of these two processors is not the same. Here is the compressor. And here is the limiter. It's a completely different sort of sonic character. Yes, of course, it's the same drums, and there are broadly lots of similarities, and yet the compressor sounds compressed. And the limiter kind of doesn't in quite the same way. We don't feel that slightly kind of spanky thing that we're getting from the compressor where everything feels like it's being really heavily processed. Actually, weirdly, the limiter almost feels like it's having a more natural effect, despite the fact that I'm running an extra 15 dB of gain into it and I'm only attenuating 6 out of it. So what's interesting, I think, is that, as I said, the Logic manual will have you think that the limiter is good for the output stage and not for anywhere else. But actually, in the context of a really hard processed sound, the limiter can be incredibly useful on particularly grouped instruments. So if you're working on big productions where you have a multi-track drum arrangement, for instance, where every single sound has got its own channel, but it's all being fed through to a track stack where you've got a drum bus, experiment with the idea of putting a limiter on that bus if what you want is extra power from the drums. It might not achieve a better result than the compressor, but it might, and it might just give you that extra sense of power. And if you're writing trailer music and you're writing, I don't know, groups of strings and you want them to have a kind of hyped, really hard sound, again, try the limiter. Try it on groups of synths where you've got EDM style sequences that are like burbling away and you want loads of power from them. Whenever you've got a group of sounds and you want to experiment with dynamic range control, try the limiter alongside the compressor and see which one of those two sounds you prefer.